Sometimes, the simplest souls hold the grandest surprises, and one woman's quiet strength turned a humiliating moment into a lesson no one in Maplewood would ever forget. In the small town of Maplewood, nestled between rolling hills and lush forests, lived a woman named Emily Carter. She was simple, kind-hearted, and unassuming, a stark contrast to the glitz and glamour often associated with wealthier parts of America. Emily had always been content with her modest life, working as an elementary school teacher and dedicating herself to nurturing young minds. Her wardrobe consisted mostly of hand-me-downs from friends or thrift store finds, but she never felt the need for anything more. To her, happiness came from meaningful connections rather than material possessions. One Saturday morning, Emily decided it was time to upgrade her old car. It had served her well over the years, but its frequent breakdowns were becoming too much to handle. With some savings tucked away, she walked into one of the most prestigious car dealerships in town, hoping to find something reliable yet affordable. As soon as she stepped inside, however, she could feel the weight of judgmental stares. Dressed in her usual attire, a plain sweater, jeans, and sneakers, she stuck out like a sore thumb among the polished marble floors and sleek luxury vehicles on display. A salesperson approached Emily with a forced smile plastered across his face. His name tag read Greg, and he exuded an air of superiority that made Emily uneasy. He began by asking what kind of car she was interested in, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer, or rather, assumed it. When Emily mentioned she was looking for something practical within her budget, Greg's demeanor shifted noticeably. His polite facade cracked, revealing thinly veiled disdain. "Well, Mom," he said condescendingly, "most of our inventory here starts at 6 figures. I'm not sure we have anything suitable for someone in your situation." His words stung, but Emily tried to brush them off. Determined to prove him wrong, she explained that she did have enough saved up for a mid-range sedan. But Greg wasn't convinced, or perhaps he simply didn't care. After leading her around the showroom and pointing out cars far beyond her means, Greg finally stopped near a dusty corner where an older model sat forgotten. "This might be closer to your price range," he sneered, barely hiding his contempt. Feeling humiliated, Emily thanked him curtly and left the dealership without another word. She climbed back into her beat-up sedan, fighting back tears as she drove home. That day, she vowed never to return to that place again. The morning after Emily's disheartening experience at the car dealership began like any other. The sun filtered through the thin curtains of her modest living room, casting golden streaks across the worn carpet. Emily sat cross-legged on the couch, a cup of steaming coffee cradled in her hands as she absent-mindedly graded papers from her third-grade class. Her mind, however, was far from focused on spelling tests and math problems. Instead, it replayed the events of the previous day with painful clarity. The dismissive stares, Greg's condescending tone, and the suffocating sense of being judged not just for what she wore, but for who she was perceived to be. As Emily flipped through another worksheet, she sighed deeply, trying to shake off the lingering sting of humiliation. She had always prided herself on her resilience and ability to rise above negativity, but this time felt different. It wasn't merely about being treated poorly. It was the realization that people could so easily write her off without knowing anything about her life, her values, or her worth. Just as she was contemplating whether she should even bother looking for a new car elsewhere, there was a sharp knock at the door. Startled, Emily glanced toward the entrance, wondering who could possibly be visiting her on a quiet Sunday afternoon. Setting her coffee mug down carefully, she rose from the couch and padded across the creaky wooden floor to answer the knock. When she opened the door, she found 2 impeccably dressed men standing on her porch. One wore a tailored navy suit, his posture ramrod straight, while the other donned a crisp black blazer paired with polished leather shoes. Both carried themselves with an air of professionalism that seemed almost out of place in her cozy suburban neighborhood. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Carter." The man in the navy suit greeted her warmly, tipping his head slightly. His voice carried a note of formality that made Emily furrow her brow in confusion. May we have a moment of your time?" Still holding the doorknob, Emily hesitated for a brief second before nodding. "Of course," she replied cautiously, stepping aside to let them in. As they entered, she couldn't help but notice how their refined appearance contrasted sharply with her humble surroundings. The faded wallpaper, mismatched furniture, and well-loved throw pillows scattered around the room. Before either man could speak further, the sound of an engine approaching drew everyone's attention. Emily turned toward the window, her curiosity piqued. What she saw next left her breathless. A gleaming white Rolls-Royce Phantom glided smoothly into her driveway, its flawless exterior catching the sunlight like a beacon. The car looked surreal against the backdrop of her modest home, its presence commanding awe and disbelief in equal measure. For a moment, Emily simply stared, unable to process what was happening. Neighbors emerged from their houses, drawn by the unmistakable purr of the luxury vehicle's engine. Some peered curiously over fences, while others stood openly gawking, their mouths agape. Children pointed excitedly, whispering to each other about the magnificent car parked outside Emily's house. Even the birds seemed to pause mid-flight, as if the world itself had stopped to witness this extraordinary sight. Turning back to the two men, Emily finally managed to find her voice. What is going on?" she stammered, her wide eyes darting between them and the Rolls-Royce. The man in the black blazer stepped forward, a clipboard tucked neatly under his arm. With a polite smile, he extended a set of keys toward her. Attached to the carrying was a small golden charm engraved with the initials JC. Emily's heart skipped a beat as recognition dawned on her. Those initials belonged to none other than her husband, James Carter. "This is for you, Mrs. Carter," the man said, his tone respectful yet tinged with pride. "Mr. Carter sends his regards." Emily took the keys hesitantly, her fingers trembling as they brushed against the cool metal. Her mind raced with questions. Why would James send her such an extravagant gift? And why now, of all times? Before she could ask anything more, a familiar figure appeared in the doorway. James Carter himself strode in, his tall frame filling the space as he removed his sunglasses with a flourish. His dark hair was perfectly styled, and his tailored gray suit accentuated his commanding presence. Yet despite his polished appearance, his eyes sparkled with mischief as he locked gazes with Emily. "Surprise," James said, his deep voice laced with amusement. He crossed the room in 3 long strides, pulling Emily into a tight embrace. She buried her face in his chest, overwhelmed by a whirlwind of emotions, shock, gratitude, and a hint of exasperation. "I heard about what happened yesterday," he murmured softly, stroking her hair. "And I wanted to make sure you knew just how much you mean to me." Tears welled up in Emily's eyes as she clung to him, still struggling to comprehend the magnitude of the gesture. "James, this is incredible," she whispered, pulling back slightly to look at him. "But why? You didn't have to do this." James chuckled, brushing a stray strand of hair from her face. "Because no one treats my wife the way you were treated yesterday," he replied firmly. "You deserve nothing less than the best, Emily. And I wanted to remind you, and everyone else, that you are worth so much more than they gave you credit for." His words struck a chord deep within her. For years, Emily had been content living the simple life, rarely seeking validation or recognition from others. But James understood something she sometimes forgot. That humility didn't mean settling for disrespect. By sending the Rolls-Royce, he wasn't just making a statement about wealth or status. He was affirming her inherent value as a person. As the initial shock began to wear off, Emily stepped outside to take a closer look at the car. Up close, the Rolls-Royce was even more breathtaking. Its sleek lines and handcrafted details exuded elegance, while the interior boasted plush leather seats and state-of-the-art technology. Despite its opulence, however, the car felt oddly fitting somehow, as if it symbolized not just material success, but also the love and partnership she shared with James. Neighbors continued to gather around, some offering congratulations, others peppering Emily with curious questions. "Where did you get this?" one woman asked, her eyes wide with admiration. "Did you win the lottery or something?" Emily laughed softly, shaking her head. "No, it's complicated," she replied diplomatically. She wasn't ready to divulge the full story. Not yet, anyway. For now, she allowed herself to bask in the moment, reveling in the unexpected joy it brought her. Later that evening, as the excitement died down and the Rolls-Royce remained parked proudly in her driveway, Emily reflected on everything that had transpired. The car itself was undeniably impressive, but what truly mattered was the message behind it. James had gone above and beyond to show her that she was cherished, respected, and valued, not because of what she owned or how she dressed, but because of who she was at her core. In that instant, Emily realized that the Rolls-Royce wasn't just a gift. It was a reminder that kindness and humility could coexist with confidence and self-worth, a reminder that appearances often masked deeper truths, and that true strength lay in staying true to oneself despite external judgments. And most importantly, a reminder that love, real, unconditional love, had the power to transform even the darkest moments into opportunities for growth and triumph. As she climbed into bed that night, Emily felt a renewed sense of purpose. Tomorrow, she would return to the dealership, not out of revenge, but to reclaim her dignity and prove that respect was earned, not given based on superficial criteria. With James by her side and the memory of the Rolls-Royce shining brightly in her mind, she knew she could face whatever challenges lay ahead with grace and courage. The following morning dawned bright and clear, the kind of day that seemed to promise new beginnings. Emily woke up feeling lighter than she had in weeks, her heart buoyed by the events of the previous afternoon. The memory of the gleaming white Rolls-Royce Phantom pulling into her driveway lingered vividly in her mind, as did James's unwavering support and love. It wasn't just about the car. It was about what it represented, a powerful affirmation of her worth and dignity. For the first time since her humiliating encounter at the dealership, Emily felt ready to face the world again, armed with confidence and a renewed sense of self. After breakfast, James broached the subject delicately. "Emily," he began, his tone soft but resolute, "I know you don't like making scenes, but I think we should go back to that dealership today." He paused, searching her face for any sign of hesitation. When she met his gaze steadily, he continued, "Not because we need to prove anything to them, but because you deserve closure. You deserve to walk into that place knowing your value, without fear or shame." At first, Emily hesitated. The thought of returning to the scene of her embarrassment made her stomach churn. But then she remembered Greg's dismissive sneer, the way he had treated her like an inconvenience rather than a potential customer. She realized that avoiding the dealership wouldn't erase the memory. It would only reinforce the idea that she needed to hide or shrink herself to avoid judgment. With a deep breath, she nodded. "Okay," she said firmly. "Let's do it." When they arrived at the dealership later that afternoon, all eyes turned toward them almost immediately. The Rolls-Royce commanded attention wherever it went, its polished exterior gleaming under the sunlight like a beacon of luxury. As James parked the car in front of the entrance, employees rushed out to greet them, their expressions ranging from awe to outright disbelief. Among them was Greg, the same salesperson who had so callously dismissed Emily just days earlier. His jaw dropped as he took in the sight of the iconic vehicle, and the woman stepping out of it alongside James. Emily emerged from the passenger side wearing one of her signature outfits, a simple yet elegant blouse paired with tailored slacks. Her hair was neatly styled, and though her appearance hadn't changed drastically, there was something undeniably different about her demeanor. Gone was the tentative uncertainty she had carried during her last visit. In its place was a quiet strength, an unshakable poise that radiated from within. She walked beside James with her head held high, meeting curious stares with calm assurance. Greg approached them cautiously, his usual air of superiority replaced by visible unease. "Mr. Carter," he exclaimed, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. What brings you here today?" His voice wavered slightly, betraying his anxiety. It was clear he recognized James, not just as Emily's husband, but as one of the wealthiest individuals in the country. News of James's identity must have spread quickly among the staff after their arrival. James didn't mince words. Placing a protective hand on Emily's shoulder, he addressed Greg directly, his tone easy yet controlled. "My wife will be purchasing a car today," he stated matter-of-factly, "and I expect nothing less than exceptional service. If anyone here fails to treat her with the utmost respect and professionalism, consider yourself fired. Do I make myself clear?" The silence that followed was deafening. Employees exchanged nervous glances, while Greg stammered an apology, his face turning crimson. "Oh, of course, Mr. Carter," he managed to choke out. "Mrs. Carter, please allow me to assist you personally. We have several options that might suit your needs." Emily raised a hand gently, cutting him off mid-sentence. Her voice was calm but firm as she spoke. "Thank you, Greg, but I'd prefer someone else to help me today," she said evenly. There was no malice in her tone, only quiet authority. "Perhaps someone who understands the importance of treating every customer with dignity, regardless of how they look or what they drive." Her words hung in the air, resonating deeply with everyone present. Greg nodded mutely, retreating hastily to fetch another salesperson, one who greeted Emily warmly and genuinely, eager to make amends for the dealership's earlier misstep. Over the next hour, Emily explored the showroom with renewed confidence, examining various models with care. Each interaction was marked by genuine enthusiasm and respect, a stark contrast to her previous experience. In the end, Emily chose a sleek sedan that struck the perfect balance between practicality and elegance. It wasn't the most expensive model in the showroom, nor was it the flashiest, but it suited her perfectly. As she signed the paperwork, she couldn't help but smile at the irony of the situation. Just days ago, she had been dismissed as unworthy of even browsing the inventory. Now she was leaving with exactly what she wanted, surrounded by people bending over backward to ensure her satisfaction. As they prepared to leave, James leaned down to whisper in Emily's ear. "How does it feel to turn the tables?" he asked playfully, his eyes twinkling with amusement. Emily laughed softly, shaking her head. "It feels good," she admitted. "But more than anything, it feels empowering. I'm not doing this to get back at anyone. I'm doing it because I deserve to be treated fairly, just like anyone else." Later that evening, as they drove home in their respective vehicles, the Rolls-Royce leading the way and Emily's new sedan trailing behind, Emily reflected on everything that had transpired. The revelation of James's immense wealth had certainly been surprising, but it paled in comparison to the deeper truths she had uncovered about herself. She realized that true power didn't come from money or status. It came from knowing your worth and refusing to let others define it for you. For James, the day served as a poignant reminder of why he loved Emily so deeply. Her humility, grace, and resilience inspired him daily, and watching her reclaim her dignity with such poise filled him with pride. He knew that their partnership was built on mutual respect and admiration, qualities that transcended material possessions or societal expectations. Back in Maplewood, news of Emily's return to the dealership spread quickly, sparking conversations throughout the community. Neighbors whispered about the mysterious billionaire husband and the luxurious Rolls-Royce. But beneath the gossip lay a more profound lesson. People began to question their own assumptions and biases, recognizing the harm caused by judging others based on appearances alone. Even the dealership underwent significant changes in the weeks that followed, implementing stricter policies to ensure every customer received fair treatment. For Emily, however, the greatest revelation was personal. She learned that standing up for herself didn't mean abandoning her values or seeking revenge. It meant embracing her authenticity and demanding the respect she deserved. And as she settled into her cozy living room that night, sipping tea and listening to the gentle hum of her new car parked outside, she felt a profound sense of peace. Life, she realized, wasn't about avoiding challenges or hiding who you were. It was about facing adversity head-on and emerging stronger, truer, and more radiant than ever before. In the days and weeks that followed Emily's transformative journey, the ripple effects of her experience extended far beyond the confines of her quiet life in Maplewood. What had begun as a simple quest for a reliable car evolved into a powerful narrative about dignity, humility, and the dangers of snap judgments. For Emily, James, and even those who witnessed the events unfold, profound lessons emerged. Lessons that would leave an indelible mark on their lives and the community at large. The story of Emily Carter and her billionaire husband quickly became the talk of Maplewood. Neighbors whispered about the Rolls-Royce Phantom parked outside her modest home, speculating about how such wealth could exist so quietly among them. But beneath the surface-level gossip lay something deeper, a collective reckoning with societal norms and biases. People began to question why they had underestimated Emily based solely on her appearance or lifestyle. After all, she had always been kind, hardworking, and deeply committed to her students. Yet somehow, these qualities had been overshadowed by preconceived notions about what wealth or success looked like. For many residents, Emily's story served as a wake-up call. It highlighted the ease with which people made assumptions about others, judging not just their financial status, but also their worth as individuals. Conversations shifted from idle chatter to introspection. Parents discussed the importance of teaching children to value character over appearances, while local businesses revisited their customer service practices to ensure inclusivity and respect for everyone, regardless of outward circumstances. The dealership where Emily had initially faced humiliation became particularly vocal about change, implementing training programs focused on empathy and fairness. Emily herself noticed the shift when she returned to school after purchasing her new sedan. Her colleagues greeted her with newfound admiration, not because of the car, but because of the quiet strength she had demonstrated. Students, too, seemed inspired by her resilience. During one classroom discussion about kindness and respect, a young boy raised his hand and said earnestly, "Mrs. Carter, you taught us that it doesn't matter what someone looks like. They can still be amazing inside." Tears welled up in Emily's eyes as she realized the impact her actions and James's support had made. For Emily, the experience was transformative on a deeply personal level. Before the incident at the dealership, she had prided herself on her humility and ability to rise above negativity. However, the encounter with Greg forced her to confront uncomfortable truths about self-worth and boundaries. She had always believed that staying silent and avoiding conflict was the best way to navigate difficult situations. But returning to the dealership alongside James showed her that standing up for herself didn't mean being confrontational. It meant asserting her value without compromising her integrity. One evening, as she sat grading papers in her living room, Emily reflected on this realization. She thought about how easy it would have been to let the dealership's mistreatment slide, to avoid ever setting foot there again. Instead, she chose to face the situation head-on, proving to herself and others that she deserved respect, not because of James's wealth or influence, but because of who she was as a person. This newfound confidence spilled over into other areas of her life. She found herself speaking up more often in staff meetings, advocating for resources her students needed, and even challenging outdated policies within the school district. James noticed the change in her immediately. Over dinner one night, he remarked, "You've always been strong, Emily, but now you're letting that strength shine through. I'm proud of you." Emily smiled, feeling the warmth spread through her chest. For so long, she had relied on James's unwavering support to bolster her confidence. Now she realized she could stand tall on her own, secure in the knowledge that her worth wasn't tied to external validation. While much of the attention centered around Emily, James also underwent significant growth during this time. Though he had always been fiercely protective of his wife, witnessing firsthand how others dismissed her ignited a renewed determination to challenge societal inequalities. He understood better than most how deceptive appearances could be. After all, he had built his empire from humble beginnings, working tirelessly behind the scenes before achieving success. Seeing Emily treated poorly because of her modest attire reinforced his belief that true character couldn't be measured by material possessions. Determined to use his influence for good, James decided to invest in initiatives aimed at promoting economic diversity and inclusion. He partnered with local organizations to create scholarships for underprivileged students, ensuring they had access to opportunities regardless of their background. At the same time, he encouraged businesses in Maplewood to adopt policies that prioritized fairness and equality. The dealership, once a symbol of elitism, became a model for change under his guidance, hosting workshops on unconscious bias and customer service excellence. Through these efforts, James came to appreciate the power of leading by example. By standing beside Emily and amplifying her voice, he demonstrated that love and partnership weren't just about grand gestures. They were about lifting each other up and creating space for individual growth. Watching Emily embrace her newfound confidence filled him with pride and gratitude, reminding him daily of why he had fallen in love with her in the first place. No lesson was perhaps as poignant or humbling as the one learned by Greg, the salesperson who had initially dismissed Emily. In the aftermath of her return to the dealership, Greg found himself grappling with shame and regret. The stark contrast between his behavior during their first interaction and the respect he later witnessed from his colleagues weighed heavily on him. Determined to make amends, he approached Emily personally, apologizing sincerely for his earlier conduct. "I want to thank you for showing me what real professionalism looks like," Greg admitted during their conversation. "I let my assumptions get the better of me, and I'm sorry for the way I treated you. You deserve nothing less than the best." To his surprise, Emily accepted his apology graciously, offering words of encouragement instead of condemnation. "We all make mistakes, Greg," she said gently. "What matters is learning from them and doing better next time." Her compassion left a lasting impression on him, inspiring him to pursue additional training in customer relations and cultural sensitivity. Within months, Greg transformed from a dismissive salesperson into one of the dealership's most respected employees, known for his genuine care and attentiveness toward every customer. As time passed, the story of Emily Carter became a cornerstone of Maplewood's identity, a testament to the enduring power of humility, grace, and self-respect. Local media outlets picked up the tale, turning it into a feature article titled, "The Woman Who Changed a Town." Readers praised Emily for her resilience and authenticity, drawing parallels between her journey and broader societal issues surrounding inequality and prejudice. But for Emily, the true measure of success wasn't fame or recognition. It was the subtle yet meaningful shifts she observed in her everyday life. Strangers smiled warmly as she walked down the street, neighbors invited her to gatherings with genuine enthusiasm, and her students continued to thrive under her compassionate guidance. Even the dealership, once a source of pain, became a place she frequented willingly, knowing she would always be treated with dignity. At its core, Emily's story reminded everyone that true wealth wasn't found in bank accounts or luxury cars. It was rooted in kindness, humility, and the courage to stand firm in one's values. And as she drove her sleek sedan through the winding roads of Maplewood, Emily felt a profound sense of peace. She had faced adversity, reclaimed her dignity, and inspired countless others along the way. Life, she realized, wasn't about avoiding storms. It was about learning to dance in the rain.